I'm just hoping that the red light's on. Yes, recording on this computer. Thank you so much for joining me this evening, morning or afternoon, whichever time you're watching this video. My name's Anthea Fenton, and we're going to spend approximately the next 35 minutes just introducing this process, introducing a little bit about me and how I got involved in this. If there's any chance that you can mute your mic, that'd be fantastic. See if I can do this at this end. I don't know. It's WinPC. Is there any chance you can mute your mic? So, Cassie, if you're able to do some typing in the chat, to maybe if anybody's brilliant when has done the mic, that's fantastic. This is the first time that I've done this on Zoom with completely new people that I've not met, so do forgive me if there's any technical faults, but we'll get through it anyway. So the intention is to spend about the next 35 minutes just talking about who I am, and also as well talking about the claiming of our true inheritance. And the reason, thank you, Cassia. The reason for this title, I want to explain the reason for the title. I want to explain what it means about releasing self-worth limitations. So you've obviously seen this flyer that I did during the week. And as it says, much of our way of being has been inherited. And so I want to address part of that tonight, but the way that I want to address it, as I've said before, is through my story. And hopefully, just sit back and enjoy this next hour or so that we're going to be together. Like I said, partway through, after I finished, we're going to click off and then come back and get into the activation. But I really wanted just to set the scene with regards to who I am. And hi, Sonia, it's great I'm so glad that you're here. Just to set the scene and to share who I am and what this is all about. I'm just wondering, can people see my photo? Can you see me or not? I'm not sure if you can actually see me because I can't see the screen. So yeah, if you just let me know that, then that'd be fantastic, Cassia. So when it came to doing this infinity healing training, I really wasn't sure which angle I wanted to come from, purely because, brilliant, thank you. So I can take my glasses off. I like to show my eyes so that people can see the windows of the soul. So my background, social work, I've trained, and I suppose I've looked after people for most of my life, if not all of my life, especially my siblings. So my sister, who was younger than me, I spent a lot of time caring. And so our story really begins a little bit before then. I want to set the scene so that you can maybe understand why I've claimed this title, How to Claim Your True Inheritance. So because many of us have not realised what we've inherited, I just made some notes this afternoon because I really wanted to try and capture elements of this story so that it can impress upon your hearts where this is coming from. So before we start, I just want to thank you all for being here, and if we can just place our hand on our heart and just take a really deep breath, because many of us, like I said, our way of being is busyness. And so we might not have had a chance just to sit and just to gather our thoughts and to really breathe in what this invitation is this evening. And this invitation really is about reclaiming our truth. And by holding this space, my intention is that each and every single one of us on this call now, and also on the calls to come, if you're watching this as a replay, will have an experience that is for you, is for your highest good, to serve you in whatever way that is, for your highest good. So as I've said before, we're going to spend about 20-25 minutes, I did say 30 before, just going through this story with a view of really beginning to resonate from our own hearts. And I can feel that the solar plexus is running wild. So one of the things about this process for me is about accessing our soul wisdom. And when I was sat today, it's really interesting. I'd walked the dog, my friend's dog, and I was sat today and I was really relaxed. It wasn't a problem. And then I stood up and my left ankle started to ache. Now you might think, well, what's that got to do with tonight's session? When I was planning this session, I never really I try not to make too many notes, even though I write all the time, because I really want to access the truth. And the truth for me lies deep within, and it lies within just speaking. It releases when we are just true to ourselves and not really thinking about what we're going to say. It's more about just being. And so I wondered, I thought, what on earth, what have I done with my ankle? And then I remembered. And this is the reason why I'm sharing these stories with you tonight, in order to be able to really release the self-worth limitations. Because that ankle was telling me that we had to talk about the divine feminine this evening. And the divine feminine is a place within each and every single one of us that has been so stunted. And many of our limitations around self-worth lie within our divine feminine. This is the time to raise that divine feminine. So from now right to the end of this call, there is healing taking place. It's been taking place way before you even decided that you was going to be coming here. That I know is true. And so this soul wisdom is buried within us, and our role in this lifetime is to find it, is to find our true self-worth through our experiences, through our pain. And the pain is a trigger in order for us to be able to find our true selves. And the reason why I say that is because I wrote a book, which I'm currently working with the Infinity Healing, weaving the Infinity Healing into my story of my first 21 years of earth, on this earth. And I've had 21 years of memories that I wanted to release. And so when we're talking about claiming our inheritance, our true inheritance, it's about releasing our truth. It's releasing our limitations. As we release our limitations, we tap into our self-worth. And I say that because recently I was listening to a talk where a chap was talking about how our cells, we've got trillions and trillions and trillions of cells that help us to function, just pumping our blood around our body. And I knew that this talk was coming up, and it really resonated that each and every single one of us are trillions and trillions and trillions of cells. Thank you for joining us, Polly. We're trillions of cells. And yet many of us spend our time looking outside of ourselves for what is within. So we look outside of ourselves for a better job, for more money. And that's one of the biggest things, is this whole self-worth is very much geared towards how much do we value ourselves. And we're looking outside of ourselves to try and balance what is within us. And it's impossible. It's absolutely impossible. Our inheritance lays within us. It lays within our triggers. It lays within our pain. And again, when I was thinking about this presentation, our layers of energy bodies, the physical which is often where we feel a lot of pain, the physical is the last part of our bodies to wake up to things like illness. And, I've currently got a friend who's ill at the moment, and so it's really prominent in my mind. And I wonder which parts has she not addressed in terms of the different layers, because now it's reached the physical. That's the dense level. It's the hardest to shift. And so my passion is about building a transition. It's helping people to make that transition into living life to the fullest, really reaching for beyond our limitations. And I believe that if we address our inner child, that child that maybe was traumatized, even just entering into this world, the child would have been traumatized. If we're able to access that inner child, then I believe that we're creating a world that's worth living. That's where we're transforming the way that we used to live, because the divine masculine and feminine, as we know, our world has been very dominated with a very dense masculine energy, and that's shifting. It's shifted. But are we ready for that shift? And I believe that once we step into our self-worth, then we value more of ourselves, to recognize that actually we are the change that we want to see, and we have to start with ourselves. And so for me, interweaving energy, I was going to say, interweaving this energy of infinity healing is a real key to bringing about transformation in the shortest possible time. And so the inheritance that I'd inherited from birth, I felt that something wasn't right. And so when I came into this world, I just knew, I had a gut feeling something wasn't right, to the point where I had gastroenteritis. So I was actually, so my solar plexus and my sacral and my throat chakra, because I was vomiting and diarrhea. So those chakras were completely imbalanced, but I knew, I felt something wasn't right really from a young age. And from that young age, I then grew into being aware of so many things. And again, I could tell you lots of stories, but I want to summarize it because I just want to give you that essence, a sense of what we've got is inside of us, but it has to be released in order to really make that transition, not just for ourselves, but for each other. The wisdom that I'm referring to is a child wisdom. How many of us have been told, you don't know, you're too young? How could you possibly know? We come as that seedling knowing everything. We come with everything. If you've ever noticed a seed, I was recently witnessing the sycamore seed and its different stages. And if you can imagine that that's who we are, that we start off and we are releasing and unfolding. And as we're unfolding, we've got everything, all that potential is inside of us. So we really are in a playground where nurturing takes place in lots of different ways, but we have to find and discover our truth. And what I loved about Infinity, and what I love about Infinity Healing and what's going to happen this evening, is that Infinity Healing is very much about releasing all that doesn't serve us, if you're prepared to go there. It is classed as the #1 healing modality in the world. And the reason why it's classed as that is because it's got a speed. It's got a speed to help balance and transmute a lot of the density or a lot of things that don't serve us. It transmutes it. Now, when in the article that you've got there, have you ever thought about who you really are? Luckily for me, when I was 40, I went on a cruise and with my mum to the Caribbean. And during that time, what I didn't realise was that the transatlantic slavery movement of 200 years, the abolition, it was around that time of the celebration. What relevance does that have? The relevance that it has was that I'd injured my ankle, just like I'd have talked about my ankle today. The ankle injury is an ancestral link. I didn't realise it at the time because I wasn't taught about this in history at school. But that was a memory. That was a 17th century memory. That memory came back 10 years later whilst I was over in Ireland. I was in Ireland and I was in a pub, and an old fisherman came up to me and said, "Who are you?" And as we began talking, he said to me, "Where are you from?" And as you can see, I'm born in England. I've got an England accent, but I'm not. I've got an English accent, I should say. But obviously, I'm not from England. My parents are from Jamaica and Montserrat, which is a small island in the West Indies. So this fisherman, as I told him, said, Montserrat, that's in the West Indies. And I said, yeah. And he said, men were taken, they were enslaved in Southern Ireland and taken over to Montserrat in the 17th century. And he said, it said about the accents of the Caribbean people in the West Indies. And I'd always had a link to the West Indies. When I was 8 years of age, my mum had said that she had got Irish links, so she'd celebrate St. Patrick's Day. And I was thinking, why do we celebrate St. Patrick's Day? She didn't know why she celebrated St. Patrick's Day. It was just a tradition. So here I was, just a couple of years ago, in the west of Ireland, and an old fisherman telling me about my history. So when I told him that my name was Fenton, he said, "Welcome home." That's an Irish name. So yet again, my great-great-great-great-great-grandfather was making a connection through the injury in my ankle. The last part of this story is for about the last 20 years, I've had a dream of being on the west of an island, building a retreat where there is wellness taking place. as I was being told this story in the west of Ireland, I was literally 20 minutes up the road from where the Kerry, my Fenton name, comes from, which is Kerry. So the reason why I'm saying this is because infinity healing for me is perfect. It's a perfect match because it helps to clear any memories and DNA memories of density that no longer serves our world, and ancestral links as well. So for me, I've always had links to my ancestors, but never in a educational way, other than the other education was through my heart. And so I'm hoping that this evening you will get a sense of the work that you may have been doing, that maybe needs doing, that is going to be released this evening, but that maybe over the next couple of weeks you really observe that ancestral messages that are coming through, that soul wisdom message that's coming through, because it will come through. This healing is so subtle that it really is about being observant and really noticing any changes. If there's anything that's happening to you in the chat, please do put there's a chat box there. Do write some messages. It'd be nice to get a bit of feedback as to what you're feeling, if you're feeling anything or anything that's happening, because it has been noted that people do experience lots of different things. So let's see what time we're on. So we've got 20 minutes. So hopefully if you've got any questions or anything that you want me to expand further, then again, do write those in the chat, because there won't be an opportunity at the end, because I really just want us to come back, do the infinity healing, and then relax into enjoying the rest of your day. So that's my part about me. I was born with an awareness and a consciousness that really couldn't be explained. I felt that I was different. I felt that I was odd. That's what I was called. I was called a wise old woman. I felt that there was a lot of unheard things, a lot of unseen, a lot of unsaid, and a lot of hidden aspects of truth. And I believe that's the energies that we're in is about releasing those. It's about speaking our truth in order to release and transmute. So for me, you hear a lot nowadays of people talking about love and light. Love and light, for me, you have to balance it out. You've got to have the two. But we've got to recognize that there is density, that there is darkness, that there is the unseen and the unsaid. And it's okay to release those, because it needs to be seen. We need to transmute. So bring the two together and release them. And we've got some chat going on down here. And so for me, the dark needs to be seen as much as the light. Thank you. So it really is about our energy and our presence. One of the biggest things for me is that when we spend time with people, we offer that gift of presence. And I think, again, if you just breathe that in, presence, just how is presence showing up in your life? And how do you show up with presence? Because I know that, bless grandparents. So Polly and is talking about her grandparents, her mother's parents wanted to retire to Montreal. How interesting! How interesting! Wow, yeah, it's still going there. So the gift of presence is all that we have. It's being in the moment and being in the present. And one of the things about inheritance is that because many of us are busy doing, we very rarely get this choose to be, because there's always something else to do. And so one of the things that with infinity healing is that this can be a pattern, and it can be a stuckness, and it is sometimes so deeply seated that it needs to be really shifted through acknowledgement and letting it go. So we're going to be doing some of that tonight. We're also going to be doing, what was the other thing? One of the things, again, about the infinity healing and the darkness or the hidden aspects. Sometimes we don't talk about our experiences very well. We don't talk about, we just don't talk about how our lives have been affected from childhood and what we're carrying through into our adulthood. And then we become parents and we start passing those on. And so one of the things that I'd said about in the flyer was, how is your past playing out in your life today? Because if you're not addressing those issues, and it's not about blame, because one of the things that we have to release is blame. This is about exercising discernment and not judging. And I was always thinking that if I had an opinion about something, I was judging. I wasn't offering discernment. And discernment for me is where you're not making you're not forming an opinion. You've just got I guess it's kind of like you have got an opinion, but you're not forming a judgment. That's what I mean. You've got an opinion, but you're not judging somebody based on that information. Whereas judging somebody obviously is making an assumption. Whereas discernment is very different. And so again, some of us haven't addressed that with regards to our parents, with regards to our programming, social media, TV, past life experiences, DNA, ancestral, generational. So again, this is something we're going to address with the Infinity Healing. So I'm hoping that you've got a real good sense of what Infinity Healing is about. The spiritual teaching, the last bit of the story that I want to share is that I was actually in a Buddhist retreat in the west of Ireland. I'd gone volunteering, and I'd always learned to respect other people, to respect my elders, especially, even if the elders wasn't respectful to me. Apparently, it didn't really matter. And so, oh, thank you. Polly's just talking. Actually, everybody can see. How interesting. So yeah, the ankle. So one of the things that oh, brilliant. Thank you, Polly. It's interesting. The ancestors have been around today. So as soon as I put out the call, even before then, there was a connection, and I felt it really strongly. And I was prepared all day, working on everybody who was going to be listening to this audio, because I really wanted people. I want people to have a real significant shift for them, not because of what I'm doing, but purely because the time is now. And it links in with the experience. I was in the Buddhist retreat for 3 months, and I just felt something wasn't right. And I don't know, again, if you've ever resonated with something not being right and gone against your own gut feeling. And I wasn't going against my own gut feeling, but I was thinking, why are people so blinded to what feels so obvious? In the end, within 3 months, the spiritual director who had been there for about 30 years, had been finally exposed for abuse, sexually abusing quite a lot of, lots of abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, for over 30 years. Now, this isn't a coincidence for me. Wherever I seem to go or gravitate towards, then there's often a release in the unsaid, and the unheard comes out. And there's lots of experiences of those that I could share with you, but I won't, because that's not what we're going to be doing. We're going to be working on shifting these self-worth limitations. So my point is that, sorry, I'm just on the live call. And so one of the things, that's what happens, life goes on, eh? And so one of the things about inner self and wisdom is to really understand that our truth is within, and never to doubt it. And it doesn't matter who says it's right or wrong. It's that sense of knowing inside. The most important part of it is to speak it out. And I say that because I held on to lots of things for a long time, thinking, is it just me? Is it just me? Maybe I've got it wrong. And then eventually it would come out. And so it's so important for us to speak our truth. And part of the releasing with self-worth limitations is in order for us to be able to do that, to really get a sense of who we are. So if anybody's got any more questions, thank you so much, Polly. We're gonna switch off from here, and then we're going to come back into, because I didn't want to be spending a long time, but you need to come back into the same room. And the reason for that is just to get yourselves ready, to get yourselves, and I've just switched this and put it onto full screen, sorry, is to get yourself ready for gosh, it feels like it's a big build-up, for the Infinity Healing. I'm just going to stop share, sorry, I'm clicking on all sorts of things here. Is to thank you so much for joining. I couldn't see who is online or not. Is to basically get yourselves a drink, and just to be, let's have a see, be ready for the Infinity Healing going to take place. So it's already happening, and maybe you can, like I said, you can sense that, which is great. But if you've got any more questions or anything that you're not clear on, then do feel free to put it into the chat. Thank you so much for engaging. Polly, I didn't fully get to see everything that you wrote there, but when we come back, the intention is to really lift into the activation. So if there's any no more questions, then I shall invite you all to switch off. I just want to make sure, because once we switch off, then I can't read these messages. And then to come back on. So yeah, Polly, thank you so much. I'm glad that you're saying that you're some synchronicities, just feeling some connections regarding your ancestral line. That's really nice. She's Sweet Chariot. It's a long time since I heard that one. And the ankle. I wonder which ankle it is that you have issues with. Brilliant. Okay. So maybe when we come back on, you can tell me which ankle it is that you have issues with. Because I know when I had issues in Ireland, it was my right ankle. When I got some reflexology, I was told that was my grandfather. And then I was told about my grandfather's presence with regards to the West Indies. So it's a case of never underestimate or undermine the messages that are being told. They'll come through in lots of different ways. And hopefully the whole point of doing these kinds of attunements is to be able to help you to really tap in to your core and to the sense of who you are. And the reason I say that is because, as I said, from a child I had gastroenteritis and my core was challenged right from the beginning. So I've done a lot of work. And that's not to boast, that's just to highlight that it's possible. What is possible? That's what the whole point is. So if you click off this call now, so I'm going to end the recording and then we're going to come back into the room. Feel free to get a drink and have a bit of a stretch, and then I'll be waiting anyway. I'm going to switch it off and then come back. So thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you in the next 2 minutes. Bye for now.